Most empires are remembered for their armies. Persia should be remembered for something rarer. It figured out how to rule millions of people without forcing all of them to become the same. At its height, the Achaemenid Persian Empire stretched from the edge of India to the Greek world. It ruled dozens of peoples, languages, gods, laws, and local traditions. Most conquerors look at that kind of diversity and see a problem to crush. Persia saw a system that could be connected. This was not just kindness. It was practical architecture. Conquering is the easy part. Holding an empire together is where most empires begin to fail. The Persian answer began with Cyrus the Great. When Cyrus took Babylon in 539 BC, he did not present himself as a destroyer. He presented himself as a restorer of order. He respected local temples, local customs, and local elites. The Cyrus cylinder is sometimes called the first declaration of human rights. Historians debate that label, and the object also worked as royal propaganda. But it still reveals something important. Cyrus wanted Babylon to see Persian rule as protection, not erasure. That was a low rebellion strategy. Every empire has limited resources. If you spend all of them fighting the people you just conquered, you cannot govern, expand, build, or defend the borders. Cyrus lowered the cost of being conquered. He made Persian rule feel less like a cage and more like a roof. But tolerance alone cannot run an empire. You still need structure. Under Darius I, the system became more formal. The empire was organized into provinces called satrapies. Each satrapy had a governor, a satrap, who handled local affairs, taxes, order, and administration. The center did not try to micromanage every village from one palace. That would have been impossible in a world with no phones, no internet, and months of travel between frontiers. Instead, Persia delegated. Local rulers handled local execution. The Imperial Center set expectations, collected tribute, sent inspectors, and watched for betrayal. It was a balance. Local control, central oversight. If every decision has to travel back to the capital, the empire becomes slow. If every province does whatever it wants, the empire falls apart. Persia found the middle layer. Then came the network. The royal road, improved and formalized under Darius, connected Susa in the east to Sardis in the west. Relay stations placed along the route let messages move with fresh horses and riders. In the ancient world, distance was latency. A rebellion could start in one province, and the king might hear about it too late. A border threat could become an invasion before orders arrived. Persia attacked latency with infrastructure. The road was not just a road, it was the empire's nervous system. Messages, troops, taxes, and orders moved through it. Speed became power. But speed means nothing if nobody understands the message. Persia ruled people who spoke Egyptian, Babylonian, Elamite, Greek, Lydian, Hebrew, and many more languages. So the empire used Imperial Aramaic as a common administrative language across much of its territory. This did not mean everyone stopped speaking their own language. In the market, the temple, and the village, local life continued. But when a tax report moved across borders, when a satrap received an order, when records had to be stored and read by officials, Aramaic became the shared interface. It was not cultural unity, it was administrative compatibility. That is the genius of the Persian system. The army took territory. Tolerance reduced rebellion. Satrapies delegated power. Roads and language connected the whole thing. Separately, none of these ideas were magic. Together, they formed a complete operating model for empire. Persia did not just get bigger, it became scalable. But every scalable system has a failure mode. Satraps were useful because they had local power, but powerful local governors can become disloyal. Flexibility made the empire durable, but too much flexibility can become fragmentation. The empire was also expensive to maintain. Long borders created more enemies. More wealth created more court politics. More complexity created more places where things could break. By the time Alexander of Macedon entered Asia, in 334 BC, Persia was still enormous, but its internal costs had been rising for generations. Alexander did not defeat a primitive system. He attacked a huge system that had become harder and harder to coordinate. That is what stays with me about Persia. Scale is not just about being bigger. Scale is about staying connected. You can conquer with soldiers, but you govern with systems, roads, standards, local trust, clear communication, and central oversight. Persia built an empire that worked less like a single machine and more like a framework. It could hold many cultures without forcing all of them to become identical. And for more than 2 centuries, in the chaos of the ancient world, it held. That is not just history. That is a lesson